Hi everybody, welcome back to another business analysis video. In today's video, I have an exciting guest coming to share with us business analysis knowledge. And for today's topic, we're looking at stakeholder management because this is one of the key area of business analysis that business analysts need to know about. It's one of the key skills that we need to know. So everyone, welcome Mark to our channel today. Hi Mark, welcome. How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing great, Pippa. Thank you for inviting me to your channel. Much appreciated. I hope I can add some value.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so excited to have you on here as well. So before we start our discussion today, which will, like I mentioned, focus on the importance of stakeholder management skills for business analysts. For those who haven't come across you before, Mark, could you give us a quick or a brief introduction about yourself?
Sure. Okay. So my name is Mark Bruins. I'm 59 years old. I come with over 40 years of IT experience. I've had 25 jobs in my illustrious career. 15 of them have been contract roles, 8 in the UK, and I've worked on 5 of the 6 continents. Basically, I culminated all my experience and passion as a university teacher and a lecturer and a business analyst, a senior certified business analyst contractor and an IT guru or expert. And I combined all these passions and interests. And in April 2019, I founded BA Masterminds. The BA stands for Business Analysis or Business Analysts. And basically, I don't teach business analysis. Let's just get that right. Okay, I know enough about business analysis. I've done it, but what I do is I take a person that's got, we've got different criteria to be able to sign up to our courses. But for instance, the goal, you need a university degree and 1 year experience as a business analyst, and then either working in the UK, USA, or Canada. And then what we do is we redefine you totally from the ground up. So what people want, we've noticed, is people want to earn more money. People want to have a lifestyle and freedom, and people want to buy their own home and live in their own home. So it is a bit, it's quite a lot to do with money. Let's say money can't buy you happiness, but I'd rather be homeless in most cities. So that's what we try and do. We elevate our masterminds so that they can earn a lot more money. A lot of people are, stuck in a job and they're in their comfort zone and they're getting a bit bored and they've been there 2 or 3 years and their starting salary was maybe 40K and now they're on 42K after 2 or 3 or 4 years. And then I ask them, well, what do you think they're worth? Well, I'm worth 60K. And then I say, well, in my opinion, you're worth 75K. And then I show them where their value lies. And then we do a current state, like an as is, where they are at the moment. We work out their 1 year goals, where they'd like to be in a year from now. And we do a bit of a gap analysis. And then we work out mini goals and action steps to achieve each mini goal. But the idea is, Pippa, that we actually really increase their salary. And unfortunately, they have to leave their current role and start a new role. So it comes with all that, updating your CV and LinkedIn profile and finding jobs and applying for jobs and having interviews and giving in your notice in the probation period. All these things go with it. So we're kind of like an end-to-end from where they are now, taking them to where they want to be.
That's so amazing. So much to share there. I wish I had found you at the start of my career because also like a lot of new business analysts and a lot of my viewers are aspiring business analysts as well. Your value, whatever, what you're sharing in the business analysis space, it's so much value for us aspiring business analyst. So that's why I said I wish I had found you at the start. It would have made it so much easier for me to transition into my role and focusing really on the money aspect. Because at the end of the day, we all work to be able to provide for our families and enjoy life, pay our bills and enjoy life. Even though as much as we want to find a career path that we enjoy, which for us is business analysis, we also need to remember money. Money is a key aspect of life, really. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And I'll share all your details in the description box for my viewers to get in touch if interested in joining the BA Masterminds. Okay, so moving on to today's topic. As much as Mark just mentioned that he doesn't teach business analysis, by the way, he helps you to move into the business analysis career path. He is here today to still share some knowledge with us, even though he doesn't teach. And like I mentioned before, we wanted to talk about the importance of stakeholder management for business analysts, because as aspiring business analysts, I want you all to know that this is one key area that we need to be able to tackle when we become business analysts, because business analysis involves communication, talking to stakeholders from different areas, right? C-level stakeholders. And I've talked about this in my previous videos, how I was a shy, introverted business analyst, and handling stakeholders was one of my key weak spot in business analysis. So today, Mark is here to share with us that area of business analysis. So my first question to you, Mark, is what are you able to share with us about that importance of stakeholder management for business analysis? Why do we need to be able to manage stakeholders really as business analysts?
And that is a really good question. Just to go back, Pippa, you get soft skills and hard skills. And this is a kind of like a soft skill. You need to be able to work with people, and that all comes with practice. You know, if you're an introvert and you're just living at home and you're not going out and you're not joining in, playing football in a team or netball in a team and getting actively involved, you know, you're going to be a little bit introverted, and that'll actually impede you in your ability to communicate effectively with stakeholders, because it is a skill that comes with a lot of practice. And with practice comes perfection, and that's what we should all strive for when we deal with stakeholders. But let me break it down into three separate sections. The first is collaboration. So there's two different types of collaboration. Either it's going to be in person. So you go to the office. So say you've got a hybrid role, 2 days a week, you're allowed to work from home, 3 days you're in the office. Now, when you're in the office, then you need to collaborate professionally with colleagues and other stakeholders, maybe customers or vendors. And you can do that on a one-on-one, or you can do that in a group environment. So you can either facilitate a workshop or be part of a breakthrough session where you all, brainstorming and things like that. So it comes with practice. So basically, initially, I would suggest that you listen and you hear, and then you absorb information. And then only after a while, when you start feeling comfortable, then you start, adding value and adding to the conversation. And then slowly and gradually, you start adding and adding more and adding more. Because, Senna, on a scale of your effectiveness to collaborate with stakeholders, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 is you rubbish, and 10, you can talk the hind leg of a donkey. You can't go from a 2 or a 3 all the way up to a 10. You've got to go from a 2 to a 3, and then a 3 to a 4, and a 4 to a 5. So gradually you've got to increase, it comes with practice. It's all about practice. And the other one besides collaboration is, so then I said in person and virtually. So obviously virtually you need to be, in control of your technical equipment. So you need a good computer, a fast internet, a reliable internet connection. You need a good camera. You need good speakers and a microphone or a good headset. So it comes with the technical equipment first, because if you can't be heard or you can't hear somebody else, you won't be able to effectively collaborate with them as well. So it's very different stakeholders, collaboration personally and virtually. And then the next is alignment. So basically, you need to let all the relevant stakeholders know what you're working on. So if they say your instructions are this, you've got to be in alignment. You've got to say, I understand your instructions. I understand the deliverable. I understand the due date. I understand the content of the deliverable. We're in alignment. Because that can just avoid future problems. And the third one I want to mention is transparency. And in my view, you only have to be transparent to one person at work, and that is your line manager. Everybody else, you don't have to tell them what's going on, but your line manager needs to be totally in the picture as to what you're doing. No hidden agendas. They know what you're doing every day, so that you can build that trust. And so when your line managers line manager comes to them and says, so what is Pippa working on? They know exactly what you're working on, because you've already had this collaboration, alignment, and transparency relationship with your line manager. So I think that's very important when you do stakeholder management, is to adhere to those 3 rules, as I put it.
I think that's really, really interesting. The in-person, virtually, having that alignment and transparency with line manager. I've actually had a negative experience when it comes to your third option, which is transparency with line manager, where on previous projects I haven't sort of represented my project, who I'm speaking to, and the progress so far. I didn't have it written down like on a spreadsheet. And then my manager came and asked me what I was working on, and she needed some sort of document. And I was like, oh, I'm carrying on okay so far with the project, but she needed to have that visibility, managing her expectations as well, and also having something for her to feed back to her line manager on how I'm working. So I've made that mistake in the past. So yes, transparency with your line manager is very, very important, and that's a really, really great point. Thanks for sharing that, Mark. Okay, so my next question is still focused around this stakeholder management. How do we ensure that we haven't overlooked any important stakeholders during our sort of requirements engineering process as business analysts?
Okay, so how do we ensure we haven't overlooked any important stakeholders? So basically, we need a method to manage our stakeholders. Now, if I have to ask everybody that's watching this video, what method do you use? Nobody is going to say my method, because
okay.
Some people say you've got to think out of the box, but I don't even have a box. All right, so I use Outlook. Okay, so basically how it works is, I've had lots of jobs in the past, like I said, 25. Every time I had a job, or the last 20, I've had a corporate computer. So when you go in person, before COVID, there was a desk, your own desk, with a phone and a printer and a fax machine. I'm showing my age now, but we had a corporate computer, and I've never, ever had an Apple corporate computer. It's always been Microsoft Windows. So in the office, it's a desktop, and when you take it home, it's a laptop. Now, medium to large companies in the private sector, they all use Microsoft Office. Now, these smaller, less profitable companies, these ones that can't afford the services of us business analysis, they use Google Workspace. But you can also use Google Workspace with the email account and things like that. But when you launch Outlook, there's some icons. There's an email icon, and then there's a calendar icon. Now, if you click on the email icon, then there's a drop-down menu that's called Address Book. So when you start at a company and you get a corporate login and you've got an email account and you launch Outlook and it's already configured for that email account, you will have access to the GAB, the Global Address Book. Every single person that works in the company, name, surname, designation, mobile number, location, photograph, LinkedIn URL, whatever it is, they will all appear in the GAB. Now, what I do and what I mentor my students is, when you start in your new role, create a PAB, which is your personal address book, and that is then empty. And then every single time somebody internal sends you an email, add them to your PAB, your personal address book. Before you email anybody, go to the GAB, go to the Global Address Book, find them in the GAB, copy their profile and put it into your personal address book. In other words, every single person that you communicate with electronically from the office via email, they will be in your personal address book. And that's basically your stakeholders and more. And Outlook's got fantastic functions where you can group them. You can email them as a group, you can categorize them, you can classify them. So you can classify them as to the type of stakeholder they are. So that's my method of ensuring that you haven't overlooked any important stakeholders. Quite unique, I think.
Yes, very, very unique. And something new as well, even for me to steal. I'm going to definitely steal that. As part of the Outlook icons, I do search that for who the key stakeholders are that I'm speaking to. But I have never created a PAB. So that's a great one. And I hope you guys, viewers, are able to learn from that as well when you finally become business analysts. These are really, really great pointers that Mark is sharing. And I don't know, I feel so excited learning these new areas, these new aspects of business analysis. So my next question is around, you've now created your PAB, right? Maybe you're working on a project and you have your list of stakeholders. How do you then go about understanding those people that you've identified and then prioritizing their needs as well as their expectations on your project as a BA?
Yes, thank you, Pippa. That's a really good question. So again, I'm going to take a working example from our mentoring. And so basically, the method I teach our masterminds is to only take instructions from your line manager. I'm not going to go into detail from that, but you're only accountable to your line manager. And so we, in our goal mentoring, we use an Excel spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet is entitled Roles and Responsibilities and Your 30, 60, 90-day Action Plan. So basically how we do it is we take the job description. So initially, this is for new starters. You've got a new job, you're starting at a company, but I've also mentored this for people who've been in companies for 2 or 3 years. So basically, if you're a new starter in a permanent job or a consulting job or a contracting role, you've got a job description, a detailed job description. You needed that when you applied for the job and to prepare for the interview, and you needed to prepare for your first few days and weeks at work, because you can either be reactive at work and say to your line manager, I've done 5 days of onboarding, what do you want me to do now? Or you can go to your line manager and say, I know what I'm doing, I've got the job description, let's just prioritize which tasks you want me to do first. So we then break down the job description into the 5 W's, and I'm not going to go into too much detail that to save some time, but one of the W's is the who. So who are you doing this piece of work for? So if you get 10 items in the job description and you're starting to work, maybe 7 of those you're doing for your line manager. Perhaps another 1 is for a lead BA, perhaps another 1 is for a project manager, perhaps another 1 is for a program director, or maybe even a subject matter expert. Okay, so we're going to first determine who are you doing this piece of work for. And then basically, so now we divide it up into 2 categories. So the types of stakeholders that there are is, you get stakeholders that just want to be kept in the loop. So in other words, they're very high, they're very senior, maybe the business sponsor to see how you're spending their money, or maybe the program director or the project manager just wants to be kept in the loop, but they don't have any active participation or influence on the outcome of your deliverable. So for instance, you're doing a business case, you've got some stakeholders, the business sponsor, for instance, and perhaps the program director who've got a vested interest, but they don't want to make any changes or add any content to your business case. And then you get the stakeholders that actually have an active participation, those ones that you need to go and speak to either in a forum or one-on-one or in a workshop or something, and elicit from them what content actually they want in there. So that's where I start at a very high level to differentiate those that just want viewing rights to the documents or those that want actually editing rights to the documents.
That's great. Really, really great. Thank you so much again for sharing that. Now coming to our final question, closing the video. As part of stakeholder engagement, we're talking to people. People, again, different levels, right? For instance, for me, I always had this fear of authority, people that are higher job titles than me. I had that fear in going to them and communicating with them. And some stakeholders also can be quite challenging to discuss with. So are you able to share with us maybe an example of challenging stakeholders and how can we address this? How can we sort of help ourselves really to be able to tackle such a challenging experience with a stakeholder?
Sure. So let me just remind the viewers or inform them if they don't know that you did inform me of these 4 bullet points before today's session. So I have been able to prepare for this, fortunately, because I've dealt with quite a few challenging stakeholders. And the last thing you want to be asked is a question, and then and you make this go just down the rabbit hole, right? So I found one actually that turned out really good. So I was working as a senior business analyst contractor, and I was tasked with creating a BRD, which is a business requirements document. the project that I was working on was for a new queue management system. So basically it was to digitize. So we were replacing, when you go somewhere that's a bit dated and you have all these rows of chairs, and as you walk into the building, you sit in the last chair, and then there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 counters, and then it's like a hot seat. So when the first person gets up to go to the counter, everybody moves to the seat next to them. Right, so that it was one of those situations, and we wanted to change it. We wanted to create a queue management system where you walk in the door, a person, a very friendly person, customer services greets you and asks you, and then helps you with a ticket and points you towards the right queue, and the ticket prints out then, and it's then you get called up with a television and a board, and it's an average waiting time, and it can get quite into detail. I did a full cost versus benefit analysis on 5 of them. Anyway, so there were functional and non-functional requirements that I had to gather, and I had a list of 4 stakeholders that I had to go and see, individual persons that I had to go and see, and I had to elicit requirements from them. So one of the stakeholders, just, you start initially by just introducing yourself. So it's go to the cab, put them in the pab, send them an email. Hi, my name is Mark. I'm the senior business analyst contractor here, and my line manager is so-and-so. I'm tasked with creating the BRD for the new queue management system. And I've determined, or together with my team, we've determined that you are one of the persons that I need to come and discuss this with and gather some requirements, what you'd like the system to do. And, can you please reply to this email with your availability? Well, out of the 4 stakeholders, 3 of them answered. One of them did take 2 days to answer, but the other one, it just didn't answer at all. So I sent a follow-up email, and I said, well, I'm going to follow up on this. And again, nothing. So my plan was then to go, I went to the next day, went early to work, and I went to his desk, and I stood there and I waited for him to come to work. And then I approached him and I said, I am Mark and I'm working on this project, and I need to gather some requirements from you. And I explained to him in great detail, Pippa, what his benefits were, what he would reap from it. Comparing to, I put himself in the situation. Remember when you went to that building and you had to wait there? Have you ever done that? Yes. So I put him in, in the mind of the as is the current situation. And he disliked that, as most people are with their current situation. And then I explained to him the future situation. This is how it's going to be, but we really, we need this to work. Otherwise it's going to get rejected, and it's a lot of budget. And I explained to him the importance of him as an integral cog in this machine. So, just basically stroked his ego a little bit. He arranged for the next day, and I got a 45-minute meeting out of him, gathered all the requirements because I was really prepared. And he, was very, very thankful and very grateful. So that was a good situation, turning a bad situation into a good situation, I'd say.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. And my reason for asking that question is, as part of what I share on this YouTube channel, I like to give case study and examples so that aspiring business analysts can start to visualize and see themselves in the role. And this question also comes up almost every time in interviews, right? So it would be great for them to also see how they could answer the question and how they could also tackle that in the real life scenario. And as much as we have prepared these questions initially, I had a follow-up question, if that's okay. I know. I know. Now that we're all mainly in a remote world, for instance, me, I only work from home. I don't even go into the office. How would we, or how would you say I should tackle this sort of scenario where the stakeholder isn't responding? There's no desk for me to approach the stakeholder and talk about the requirements I want to gather. So how will I sort of tackle this challenge working from home?
Oh, I'm glad you asked me an easy question. Okay, so what I mentor my masterminds is there's only 2 things that you want in a job, your new job, role, position, whatever we call it, right? You want your colleagues to like you and your line manager to like you a lot. Nothing else. Okay. So basically, if a colleague doesn't like you, you're going to get what's called backstabbing. They're going to talk behind your back, and then it'll go round and round and round. It'll eventually come to your line manager, and your line manager will find out that some of your colleagues don't like you. You really don't want that. Okay. I've had it happen before, and I've heard lots of people have it happen before, and it just sours the relationship. The reason why you want your line manager to like you a lot is if you do something wrong, then you can say to your line manager straight away, I realize I've done this wrong. This is what I've done to prevent it from ever occurring again. Or you can say, I've got 3 solutions which I propose to you so that you can help me choose the best one for me to implement to fix what I've done wrong. This is what I've done to ensure that it won't happen again. Please give me a second chance, don't fire me. Right? And if your line manager likes you a lot, and this is especially during probation, Pippa, if your line manager likes you a lot, they'll give you a second chance.
Yeah.
If your line manager doesn't like you a lot, this is the perfect opportunity to get rid of you and to employ somebody that they do like a lot. So it's very important. Your line manager will like you a lot if you deliver your deliverables on time to the best of your abilities. That's all you really need to do. And of course, alignment, transparency, and collaboration. So going back to your question, if a stakeholder, it's called a blocker. So you've got a certain list of actions to do. You've got a due date for your deliverable, and usually other people or other teams are dependent on the outcomes of your documentation or your deliverable so that they can continue with their work. All right. So basically, you don't want to upset any of your colleagues, keeping in mind that you want your colleagues to like you. So I suggest to you, this is what you try and give it a go and see how it works for you. So basically, you write them an email in the early days, introducing yourself, and just ask them to reply. Because there's 2 types of emails. One you just need to read and folderize. One you need to read and do a call to action and do something. So you're going to ask one call to action. They must just reply to your email to say noted, received, or whatever. Now there's an open line of communication. That's very important to establish that first. And then with the second email, then you a follow-up email. You can say, now that we have, and this is what I'm working on, and this is important. Try stick with short emails. No one reads anymore, and you can maybe do 4 or 5 paragraphs and put some few lines in bold, few words, so that they can speed read the document and just look at the bolds, and make sure that the call to action, one call to action per email and no more. And then you're going to, you've already introduced yourself, and now you're going to say what you actually want from them, but you've got to show their benefits first. You've got to show, I call it stroking their ego. You've got to say that you're a very important person and you're an important cog in this wheel and things like that. And I really need your assistance and so on. So you ask them nicely initially, and you've got to make sure that you can actually don't give them too many options. Usually 2 options is best. 3 options is fine. Don't let them decide which day and which time and which time slot and which venue and all that. Ask your line manager if you're allowed to have permission to their calendar in Outlook, and you can see their availability. And then you can actually look at their availability and look for a gap or 2 or 3 in their calendar that you know that they're available. And then don't tell them that you've got access to the calendar, because that might ruffle their feathers. But just say, I propose these days and times, knowing that they're available, and let them choose A or B or 1 or 2. So their call to action is to reply to your email and say A or B or something short. Because if it's a long story and they've got to attach a document and a PowerPoint presentation, it could take them days to answer. So make it very easy for them to reply with 1 call to action per email. If you send a person an email and you require them to do 2 things, send them 2 call to actions. Because if they can answer the one, they're not going to reply to your email because they're not ready to answer the second one yet. So it's going to hold you up. So that's a little tip right there. But then secondly, if they don't respond, then I would send them another follow-up email and ask them again. But I would do it about 2 or 3 days apart. And then give them another 2 days, and that is that. Now you do what's called escalate. And you only ever escalate to your line manager. So you let your line manager know in a very short email with no call to action replying to you, but basically saying, I've got the stakeholder. I consider this person a blocker. I need to gather A, B, and C. Now, just remember that you can't tell the stakeholder what to do. Your line manager can't tell that stakeholder what to do. Only the stakeholder's line manager can tell that stakeholder what to do. So your instructions to your line manager should be, contact their line manager and go to Gab and find out who that is and say them and add a little Outlook embedded object with their contact information or a URL shortcut to whatever, or their name and surname, but say, can you please contact this person and ask that person to reply to my email with the date and time of their availability. And then you leave it up to your line manager, because that's, you don't want to get into trouble, because once you start getting irritating to somebody, they're going to dislike you. And there you've lost rule number one, that your colleagues must like you. So that's what I suggest you do. Escalate after 2 attempts.
Okay. That's a great tip. Thank you so much for sharing. I'll definitely take that on board if I experience that in the future. Yes, really great. Thank you so much for sharing all the tips. I know we've overrun the times, but it's fine. I actually have so many more questions to ask you, but I know that you're coming on to do a live coaching session with us in Business Analyst School. So if you're not a member yet, click the link in description to join if you'd like to ask Mark any questions within the membership space. He's really going to share so much information via our online live coaching session happening. We do these coaching sessions once a month, and Mark is gracing us with his presence in our next session. So I hope to see you all there. Mark, thank you so much for sharing all the tips, sharing all your knowledge. It's been so great having you on the channel. Is there anything you'd like to share before we close to aspiring business analysts and our viewers on today's?
Yes, follow Pippa on YouTube, subscribe to her channel, hit the alert button, and go and watch all the videos. You add a lot of value. I appreciate all the hard work you've put in and everything that you do for business analysts and aspiring business analysts. You mentioned earlier that if only you knew about me when you were an aspiring business analyst. I feel the same. When I was a business analyst in 2015, when I started business analysis, then I didn't even know what a mentor was. I knew what a coach was, a sports coach, but I didn't know what a mentor was. And I also could have elevated my career and earned a lot more money. My first contract was £400 a day. In 2015, working for Boots, the chemist in Surrey. But I'm sure that after a couple of, like a year or two, I would have also been on 800 or 900 pounds a day, like some of our masterminds are. But now I've got 10 mentors, moving from 0 to 10. It's quite, and mentors make a world of a difference. Following somebody like yourself up and getting all these ideas and collaborating with you and reaching out into the network. I mean, it adds a lot of value. I always say to my masterminds or my prospects, now, I've got the strategy, I've got a proven blueprint. You can either try and, secure your 1-year goals yourself, or you can appoint a mentor like me to help you to get there quickly. And, mentors do make a world of a difference. Yes, definitely 100%. And for people like us, because we've sort of experienced a lot from the beginning of our career and to where we are now, it's only great for us to then share the knowledge so that you're prepared as well going forward in your career as a business analyst. So that's what we're here for. And like I said at the start of the video, click the link in description to reach out to Mark and join his masterminds. Amazing what he shares on there. So thank you all for watching. Thanks, Mark, for joining us. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, share this content. You'd never know who it might help. Until I see you in my next one. Peace.